The majority of modern doctors recommend the contraceptive pill as a medication to regulate menstruation and also to relieve strong menstrual pain. They prescribe it, above all, to the single woman. What is your opinion on this matter? The contraceptive pill for relieving menstrual pain seems to me something completely empiric and absurd. In the name of truth, we must say that people do not know the pure science. That which is now called science is no more than a rotting mass of lamentable theories. I consider then that these artificial procedures which are popular are 100% prejudicial for human health. Menstrual pain can be cured through more efficient means, not through contraceptive pills which serve for nothing. The attitude of all those scientists of the Antichrist is criminal. They who have invented the most famous contraceptive pill with all its consequences and byproducts. Obviously, all of you, the women, have been victims of the Antichrist. One must understand by Antichrist false science, academy, ultra-modern science. The famous contraceptive pill is not necessary. Those who want the true controller in respect to the question of contraception must work with the arcanum AZF. Question. In the case of a woman who has controlled conception by means of the contraceptive pill, and then afterwards knows the Gnostic teachings and wants to practice them, must she do something to detoxify the organism, or will nature take care of it? Answer. With respect to the intoxication that you have received due to the concoctions recommended by the scientists of the Antichrist, you must leave all to nature. She will certainly take care of it, purifying the organism absolutely. We repeat, in no form is the system using the contraceptive pill necessary. It is 100% criminal. Nature is very wise and has laws to control an excess in population. Remember that everything in nature is subject to the law of the pendulum. If today there is a population explosion, when our position changes with the movement of the pendulum, we will find ourselves in the other extreme and will have, precisely, a population decline, a minus. There is then a plus and a minus in this question of population. All plus demographically is controlled by the laws of nature. When the human population is excessive, wars or plague always ensue, or both things at the same time. The fact that in these precise moments there is a demographic explosion indicates, signals, the arrival of war, plague, and many further epidemics. Question. If a woman has altered her normal sexual functions, like tubal ligation, or with some other physical system, or perhaps if the man has a vasectomy, what probabilities do they have of sexual transmutation? Would these persons be able to create the superior existential bodies of the being? Answer. The resource of man is necessary before all. You must take into account that the sun is making a marvelous experiment in the test tubes of nature. It wants to create men. We know well that the race of humanoids is necessary to be able to capture determined types and subtypes of cosmic energy, which later it transforms and retransmits to the inferior layers of the planetary organism. A sad situation for the humanoid, true? Without doubt, the sun wants more, and has placed within the sexual endocrine glands of the humanoid the seeds of the man. Such seeds are able to develop if we cooperate. If we don't cooperate, the sun's experiment fails. During the first 8 centuries of Christianity, many men were created. In the Middle Ages, the creations were very rare, and now they are even rarer. For a man to exist, it is necessary that the seeds for the superior existential bodies of the being, situated in the sexual endocrine glands, develop suitably. Such seeds are not able to develop if within us cooperation does not exist. It is also unquestionable that such seeds are not able to develop in an unfavorable environment. When one makes glandular experiments, when one ties the tubes, when one has glandular transplants, or if you graft into the organism the glands of a monkey or other similar things, the conditions which result will certainly not be happy. How will the seeds of a man be able to germinate in such an organism? If we observe the ants, we are able to realize that they, in the past, were humanoids. Unfortunately, the scientists who emerged within this race of humanoids dedicated themselves to harmful experiments, removing glands, making transplants, closing tubes, etc., etc., and the result was the seeds of a man were unable to develop in these creatures. On the contrary, they were dwarfed, little by little. They changed the base of their morphology, and today are those creatures which we know well, and who abound in all of the nooks and crannies of the earth. Question. In order to prevent cancer, official medicine uses a type of examination called vaginal smear. What should a woman do in this matter? Answer. In the ancient times, when people were healthier, no one had such examinations. Obviously, these previously mentioned examinations were born solely by the lust of scientists. They are subterfuges of the mind, invented by them. They are lubricus, lewd. Who is able to deny it? Clearly, the Antichrist is very cunning, and all of them enjoy examining the sexual organs of women. So it is then that nothing is achieved by the famous vaginal examinations. No one is helped by all of those studies of vaginal cells, all those inventions of ultra-modern scientists. Question. Master, what procedure or technique should married couples employ during the Sahaja Maithuna to eliminate defects' eyes? Answer. The couple should, during the chemical copula, both ask for the disintegration of the same defect. It is due to a lack of charity and love that the husband is asking for the disintegration of this or that defect, and his partner is, for her part, asking for the dead of another defect. It is precisely the power of the androgyny, formed by the couple during the sexual trance, which is able to utilize the Divine Mother Kundalini to incinerate this or that psychological aggregate. If the couple both direct the electrical fire towards the same defect, it will be disintegrated immediately. I repeat, both of the couple must beg for the same defect. Question. Master, what is your opinion on abortion? Answer. Abortion is the destruction of the work of Mother Nature. We know well that the goddess Mother Nature works creating organisms. Each one of us has her within ourselves, in our own psyche. It is she who unites the sperm and ovum. It is she who prepares the primitive germinal cell with its 48 chromosomes. It is she who provides the impulses for the genuine formation of the primitive germinal cell, and thanks to this, the organism develops into a creative archetype. So then, in the reality of truth, the mother struggles intensively to fix an organism, and when someone destroys her work, they commit a crime which in no manner will be able to pass unnoticed by the great law. It would be absurd that the great law would be in agreement with this type of destruction, and naturally sanctions, severely, all those who destroy the work of Mother Nature. Therefore, abortion, intentionally provoked, is a homicide, sanctioned as such by the great law. Question. When a miscarriage occurs, are we able to consider this a karma? Answer. This is not always karmic, because many times an accident is able to provoke an abortion. Sometimes it is karmic, as in the cases in which the women have started to gestate a fetus and one or another time fail in their purpose. Question. In general term, what consequences has the legislation of abortion brought on humanity? As humanity is dedicated to error and the legislation of abortion, and it is accepted as a normal, official fact, this will result in a terrible karma for the inhabitants of the earth. It is clear that those that have not provoked any abortions will have nothing to pay. However, all this, in general, will have influence in the great catastrophes which are approaching. Question: what is the cause of the actual political failure which is so characteristic in the modern leaders of government? Answer: this political failure, which utilizes modern leaders, has its origin in the sexual debility within them. It is well known that modern societies controlled by the rogues of the intellect. The rogues of the intellect are terrible fornicators, and all this is demonstrated over and over again. A rogue is the mixture of intellectualism with a lack of spirituality, and the lack of spirituality causes exorbitant lust, and this is true. I repeat that the world is governed by rogues. It is not strange that this happens. So then, the politicians, because of being weak, are governed by the Superman. The politicians, because of sexual debility, are governed by the conscious circle of solar humanity, which operates in the superior centers of the being. The politicians are like black pawns, which the interior fraternity of light manipulates. There exist black and white pawns, and the interior fraternity of light reinforces, at times, one pawn or another, in accordance with the karma and dharma of the nations. Question: Venerable Master, what is your concept about woman? How do you define her? Answer: the woman undoubtedly has the same rights as the man. If we study carefully the word Elohim, which figures in the Bible, we will find that it is a feminine noun with a masculine plural ending. The exact translation of such a noun is gods and goddesses. A religion without goddesses one finds amidst materialistic atheism, because if Elohim, or better said Elohims, are divine androgynous beings, so-called gods and goddesses, I can say, the result is we would be halfway to atheism. One is not able to remove the goddesses from any religion because the divinity within ourselves is at the same time masculine and feminine. We are able to deduce from this as a corollary that the woman has the same rights as the man, and that the intimate self-realization of the being is not possible without the union of the separated parts, man and woman. Both united by means of sex, they constitute within themselves an ineffable creature, creator, Elohim. Question: what is your opinion of those men who say that the woman is only a uterus with legs? Answer: the woman would never be able to be, as many mistakenly think, a mere uterus with legs. Obviously, those who speak in that way demonstrate their lustfulness, their degeneration, their morbid passion of a sexual type. It is good to remember with great emphasis that as well as the sexual center exists in the organism, other centers, let's recall, the intellectual situated in the cerebrum, the emotional in the solar plexus in the umbilical region, the motor center in the upper part of the spine, and the instinctive in the lower part of the same. So then, not only the generative center exists in the feminine creature, unquestionably other centers also exist. For the most part, the definition given by those lustful persons who consider the woman as a simple uterus with legs, as well as being, as I already said, morbid and inhuman, it demonstrates also arrogance and pride in those men who have obscenely formulated this. Question: is it a karmic consequence to possess a feminine vehicle, or female physical body? Answer: it does not seem to me in any manner that the feminine vehicle is karmonic. The vehicle, the feminine body, undoubtedly represents the negative creator aspect of the divinity. I already said, and I repeat another time with complete clarity, that Elohim is gods and goddesses. If the masculine aspect of Elohim has the right to a physical body, then also the feminine aspect of the same has a right to have a physical body of a feminine receptive type. Question: who has more animal passions, the man or the woman? Answer: it is obvious that animal passions exist, and as many men as women have the same animal passions. One must take into account that the ego is always ego. Sometimes it will return, regress, reincorporate itself in masculine bodies, and other times in feminine bodies. And if in a body the man manifests his passions from a purely masculine angle, in the woman it is expressed from a rigorously feminine point of view. Question: does the woman also have nocturnal emissions the same as the man? Answer: the woman also has nocturnal emissions, although many do not believe it. Women who have had such nocturnal experiences know very well that the feminine emission is a fact, and facts are facts, and before the facts we must yield. Question: are we able to consider menstruation as a karma for women? Menstruation is never able to be karma. Those who assume this are radically mistaken. Let's recall with great emphasis the people of ancient Lemuria in another time situated in what is now wild seas, in what is today the Pacific Ocean. Then all human beings were hermaphrodites. There is no doubt that those giants, those colossi, so beautifully represented by some of the Easter Island sculptures, menstruated. The feminine part ovulated, and those ovum came to the world already fecundated by the masculine principle. I repeat, the beings all had within themselves the masculine and feminine aspects. This was the time in which humanity reproduced by means of the system of ovulation, which is the same system as the birds. The creature forms itself in the egg, and after a certain time breaks the eggshell and comes into existence. The being which was born in Lemuria was nourished by the father-mother. This was the Golden Age. This was the period in which the rivers of pure living water flowed with milk and honey. At that time, there did not exist either mine or yours, and everything was for everyone, and each one was able to eat from the tree of his neighbor without any fear. At that time, those who knew how to play the lyre thrilled the entire universe with their most sublime melodies. The lyre of Orpheus had not yet fallen on the floor of the temple, smashed to pieces. When humanity separated into opposite sexes, everything changed. That egg was released from the ovary without fertilization because the masculine principle had divorced itself from the feminine. So then it was necessary for there to be cooperation to create. There is no need to do more than recall the great peregrinations that they made from remote places to the sacred temples. The Kumarats directed those mystical practices. The sexual act occurred within the paved courtyards of the temples of mysteries. Humanity reproduced by Kriya Shakti, it is said, through the will and yoga. No one committed the crime of extracting from their organism the sacred sperm. One sperm was able to escape in whichever moment to fertilize a womb. In that period, pain in giving birth did not exist, and the children were born without the mother having to suffer. Unfortunately, my dear brothers and sisters, the time came in which the people, all allied, let's say, with certain tenebrous principles which abounded in the atmosphere of the world, dedicated themselves to animal fornication. It was then that the people were expelled from the temples of mysteries, and this remained as a tradition in the sacred books. It is due to this that it is often said that Adam and Eve were expelled from the earthly paradise. Menstruation is not able to be karma. The feminine aspect, separated from the masculine, continued menstruating, continued releasing the ovum, but now without being fertilized. And this is a natural function. Question: did Count Dracula really exist? And if he exists, or existed, what are you able to tell us about vampirism? Good. Much is said about vampirism. It is said that many women are vampirized. I don't deny that there are sexual vampires. Yes, they exist. Draculas have existed and continue existing. Further, it is normal today that they abound everywhere, here, there, and everywhere, those which commonly are called shrews. It is good to remember the adventure of the Trojans with the famous hags of whom Virgil, the poet of Mantua, spoke in the Aeneid. There is no doubt that when those black sorceresses, that when those hags put their bodies in the state of jinas, they are able to transport themselves to different locations of the earth. If they have enemies, they approach them and they bite them. The wound appears later like a black mark in this or that part of the body. So then, really, they're not exactly vampires, but hags or shrews. That is all. And these are called witches. It is something common and which you know. Question: does the woman, like the man, have seminal fluid? In the affirmative case, what is it called? The feminine seminal fluid is crystalline. We are able to designate it also as vitreous liquid, flexible, malleable. It does not carry naturally millions of sperm, as in the definite case in the man, but it carries vital principles, hormones, forces, extraordinary substances. There is no doubt that the woman, with the orgasm, loses incalculable riches, calories, prana, magic sexual hydrogen Si-12, with which it is possible to create the superior existential bodies of the being. Question: why is it inadvisable for the woman to do transmutation practices either as a single or married person when she is in the period of menstruation? Answer: it is not advisable for the woman to transmute the creative energies during the time of menstruation. We must take into account that it is a very delicate process, since certain substances are able to ascend to the brain and cause grave damage. Question: is it advisable for the woman to make the transmutation practices utilizing classical music, for example? Answer: it is possible to make the transmutation practice with the ineffable music of the great masters. In this manner, we are also able to sublimate. Remember the 9 symphonies of Beethoven, the magic flute of Mozart, which reminds us of the ancient Egyptian initiation, etc. It is also possible to sublimate the creative energies with healthy sports like swimming, tennis, etc., etc. In any case, to sublimate is not harmful. Question: is the woman able to involuntarily transmute her creative energies? Answer: can some persons transmute involuntarily? This would only be possible if they listened to sweet symphonies, if they were able to reach states of ecstasies like those of Saint Teresa of Jesus or of a Francis of Assisi. Do you understand? Question: what is the exact cause of peristaltic movements or palpitations of the feminine sexual organs when they are in a state of excitation? From a strict Gnostic point of view, what are you able to say of the modern woman? There exist periods of masculine plus and periods of feminine plus in the course of history. We know that the masculine sex governs for 42 years, and the feminine sex rules for 42 years. The complete sexual cycle, it is said, is 84 years. When the masculine pole of Uranus is facing the Sun, the force which commands there, in Uranus, comes, descends. It causes the masculine sex to have authority, to rule. We need only recall, for example, the time of the pirates, the times of the great acts of men, of the great wars. Also, we must remember that when the feminine pole of Uranus is facing the Sun, the force which comes from there elevates the woman and makes it so that she assumes control and rules. Precisely now, at this instant, we find ourselves in a feminine plus. The woman finds herself in government, in the bank, in society, in science, etc. Unfortunately, human beings do not know with exactitude when the masculine sex commands or when the feminine sex does. One must take advantage of these energies for our own intimate self-realization of the being. In the same human being, in the same humanoid, there exist 42 years of strong masculine activity and 42 years of feminine activity. Due to this, it is said that if an individual, for example, is born in the so-called masculine plus, in times during which the planet Uranus vibrates in a positive form, indubitably they will have a tremendous sexual power during those 42 years. But when the feminine aspect comes, instead of sexual languor, instead of debility, the power is even stronger due to the stimulus of the opposite pole. Here is the masculine and feminine force alternating in all the marvelous rhythm of the great universe. In these times, the woman is commanding, is governing, and it will follow that she will rule for a long time. A time will come in which her opportunity will be over. When this occurs, the man will return again to take the scepter of power. This is all that I want to say at the moment with respect to the woman. Why are many Gnostic students frightened of the card 15 of the tarot? Why is the devil on this card, the Typhon Baphomet, represented with breasts as if he was also androgynous? Good, let's speak a little about card 15 of the tarot. It gives me pleasure to speak of this card. I do not know why people judge the Typhon Baphomet so badly. However, the Gnostics never ignore that phrase which says, "I believe in the mystery of the Baphomet and of Abraxas." Card 15 of the tarot, the devil, is profoundly significant. Remember that it is found after cards 13 and 14. Unquestionably, the 13 corresponds to the death of myself, of yourself, of the ego. Undoubtedly, card 14 speaks to us of temperance, the chastity, the perfection which results from the death of the ego. After comes the 15, which corresponds inevitably to the primordial androgyne, to the mystery of Baphomet and of Abraxas, to the devil. This last word is something which horrifies devout people, but for the sage, the wisdom it contains is something extraordinary. In the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, a raven is seen. He looks fixedly toward the corner of the temple, toward that place where one finds the small corner stone, the master stone, the stone of truth. This stone has a form, yes, terrible, with horns which horrify. The devil, terror of many pseudo-esotericists and pseudo-occultists. The medieval alchemist said, "Burn your books and whiten the brass." Why does the black raven look to the devil? Because we must die within ourselves, because it is necessary to disintegrate the inhuman elements we carry within. It is urgent to reduce them to ash, to cosmic dust. This is how we will be able to whiten the brass. This brass or copper is represented in the morning star. You already know with complete clarity that one day, not long ago, this morning star was Lucifer, the maker of light. If we succeed then to cause to die all that within ourselves which is inhuman, we will whiten the brass, whiten the devil. This devil is the reflection of the Logos within ourselves, here and now. In the past, he was the most luminous archangel, resplendent in infinite space. He is, we say, the most important part of our being. It is our own being, which in the past was luminous, resplendent, marvelous, the most supreme archangel. Unfortunately, when we fell to the animal reproduction, he was cast into the inferno. Now he is black like carbon. Due to us, he is in a miserable state. Now you can comprehend, my dear brothers and sisters, why Lucifer appeared in the Divine Comedy, placed there in the heart of the earth, weeping from his 6 eyes. Repeating this 6, or this number 6, 3 times, we have the 666, the great whore. Yes, he weeps because we changed him, so like this, we made him black like carbon, and now we must whiten him. This is only possible by disintegrating the inhuman elements which we carry inside, disintegrating our psychological errors, to put an end to the myself, dying here and now. But if we continue with our errors, if we continue on the path of fornication, of hatred, of lust, of envy, of hypocrisy, of pride, etc., he will continue in disgrace. He is Prometheus, chained to the hard rock of sex, the Prometheus who suffered horribly and whose entrails were devoured by a vulture. Yes, the vulture desire. He is tied to existence. We must have compassion for this particular intimate devil which we have within. To whiten him, then, is urgent, my valued brothers and sisters who listen to this tape. It is necessary that we make him resplendent. If some people value the book of Giovanni Papini, which is titled The Devil, it is because this man succeeded to intuit that which is the mystery of the Baphomet. He said, if God is pure love and pardons all creatures, why isn't he able to pardon the devil? Those words earned him excommunication. He was the spoiled child of the Vatican. So then, we do not believe in an anthropomorphic devil, seated amidst the clouds, casting lightning against the sad swarm of humanity. My dear brothers and sisters, we think of a personal devil, of an intimate devil. This devil is able to become resplendent, to sparkle and shine. Whiten the brass and burn your books. To whiten the brass is of more value than all of the theories which are written and able to be written. When the devil is whitened, he will fuse with our soul, fuse with our spirit, and then we will change ourselves into something distinct, different, into archangels of light, into lords of light. This is why Lucifer is called the maker of light. I can't see why there is a motive, then, to brand this divine androgyny as something despicable. The card 15 of the tarot appears after the 13, which is the death of the ego, of the I, of myself, and after the 14, which is the man who has acquired temperance, perfection. So then this card 15 is that which again becomes resplendent. It is the divine androgyny. It is the devil transformed into Lucifer. It is the whitened brass. What are you able to say to us about those people who scorn women, who underestimate her? Those who underestimate the feminine sex, those who consider her inferior, walk the path of error, because Elohim is gods and goddesses. The feminine aspect of God is not able to be underestimated. What should the fundamental preoccupation of the woman be with respect to her interior life? It is necessary for the woman to preoccupy herself with the awakening of the consciousness. We need only recall that in the remote past, due to a certain mistake by some sacred individuals, humanity developed the abominable Kundadartswada organ. Later, when this organ was eliminated from the human species, something abominable remained within each organism. I refer to all these inhuman elements which, together, constitute the ego, the myself, the yourself. It is said that the inhuman elements which remain in the animal organisms are simply the bad consequences of the abominable Kundadartagwar organ. And within these bad consequences, the essence, the consciousness sleeps profoundly. In the beginning, the sleep was ill-defined, but after the submersion of the continent of Atlantis, the people remained profoundly hypnotized by the sinister power of the abominable Kundadartagwar organ. It is clear that the ego, the I, is the result of such organ, and this is how it is that we sleep within ourselves and is subjective. The consciousness remains processed within ourselves in a subjective manner. If I say that humanity is hypnotized, I am not saying something erroneous. Without a doubt, people do not realize that they find themselves in a state of hypnosis. People believe that they are awake, and here is their great error. We only know that hypnotism exists when this manifests very intensely, when this hypnotic force is concentrated on a determined person, in a hypnotic session, for example. Apart from this moment, people ignore the fact that they find themselves in a state of hypnosis, of profound sleep. When we come to the world to be born, we form a new personality. Later we enter a school, and as is natural, we are educated according to the customs of the time. We are instructed, we are taught all types of prejudice, etc. In all this dead weight, we come to establish within ourselves a false consciousness. But the essence itself remains sleeping there, in the depths. In it is deposited, we could say, the data which is necessary for the intimate self-realization of the being, but this is undervalued, I repeat, and even described as subconscious. We only consider as authentic, real, proper consciousness all this baggage of theories we carry inside, all this false education we have received, all these prejudices of race, caste, and nation. So then, within us, within each one of us, a dual consciousness has developed. In esoteric terms, the consciousness is called zoostat. It is sad to know that at this moment, a zoostat is divided in two. Also, it is very certain and the absolute truth that nature adapts itself. It has to accommodate two currents of blood in our organism, two systems to speak more clearly. The first is that which manifests itself during the waking state. The blood flows in certain vessels. The second is that which expresses itself during the hours of sleep, in which some vessels, different, are filled with blood. So then we have two circulatory systems within us, in accordance with the dual functionalism of a zoostat. We need to wake up, tear the veil, finish with all that which is not of the being, finish with all the prejudices of race, family, nation, with all this false education received, with all this false consciousness. We must destroy the ego, reduce it to ashes, so finally the essence can express within us. In the essence is contained all data which is necessary for the intimate self-realization of the being. This is something urgent, unpostponable, something unable to be delayed. The woman is called to wake up. She must have interest in this and struggle so the man can also awaken. No one is closer to the man than the woman. Therefore, she must struggle in order to help the man, because this time in which we find ourselves is very degenerated. With the marvelous creative energy, we are able to create the superior existential bodies of the being. Much has been spoken about the astral body. Unfortunately, the humanoids of today do not possess this marvelous vehicle. Commonly, out of interest, we would say, I go out in astral, etc. But these astral voyages are voyages in the ego. It is the I, the myself, yourself, which replaces the astral to voyage and traverse infinite space. It is necessary for one to create the authentic and legitimate astral body, and this is only possible by means of the mercury of the secret philosophy, learning to transmute this marvelous force. The real name of the astral body is the Kedjano body, Kedsjano. Those who know how to consciously transmute the sperm into energy, men and women, are able to create the Kedjano body. One knows who has such a body when one is able to travel with it consciously and positively. Later, it will be necessary to create the authentic body of objective reason, the said mental body, an extraordinary vehicle which is only formed through the sexual hydrogen Si12. And finally, it will be necessary to create the egoiter oceana body of will of the being, the said causal body. These bodies, I repeat, are only able to be created by means of the transmutation of sperm to energy. When one succeeds in possessing these vehicles, when one truthfully has them, then one is able to incarnate within oneself this animic principle, one's real internal being, to convert oneself into an authentic man, a man in truth. With the word man, I include naturally also the woman, the same way in which, with the word Elohim, God, is included also goddess. So then, my dear brothers and sisters, work intensively with the creative energy of the third Logos. It is unpostponable, unable to be delayed, if it is that one day we desire, truthfully, to reach the final liberation. Venerable Master, the Hebrew Bible, with reference to the woman's menstruation, says the following in Leviticus 15:19. When the woman has a flow of blood, and it flows from her body, she will be apart 7 days, and whoever should touch her will be unclean until night. For this part, the author of The Creative Energy says that this ovulation or menstruation contains the same substances as the ens seminis, as lecithin, phosphorus, cholesterol, and in general substances which serve to fortify the brain. For this reason, we ask, can menstruation be considered as fornication? I want you to know with complete clarity that menstruation is never fornication. This is obvious. The Bible says that when a woman is menstruating, she is unclean, not because of the ovum which is lost, but due to the blood which is expelled, obviously. This is charged with delirious humors in which many larvae are able to multiply. In all cases, if any chaste man is able to eliminate one sperm for fecundation, the woman has the right to eliminate one ovum, and in this there is no sin or fornication. Some vital principles are lost in the eliminated blood, but scientifically only one ovum is expelled, which escapes from the vesicle of the ovary. Do not exaggerate saying that by the woman losing an ovum monthly she commits fornication. Such a thing would be as absurd as to affirm that by the act of losing one sperm during the practice of sexual magic, the man also falls into the same sin, and this is not fornication. We need to be judicious, reflect with serenity, look at these things as they are and without exaggeration. Menstruation is not fornication. In the same order of ideas, we would like to ask the following. Can one consider the monthly loss of an ovum equivalent to a nocturnal emission, as is affirmed by the author of The Creative Energy? It is absolutely false to say that menstruation equals a nocturnal pollution. Whoever knows that in a nocturnal pollution, a male loses 7 to 8 million sperm. On the other hand, in menstruation, the woman only loses one ovum. So it is that, mathematically, the author of the book The Creative Energy, in this, is absolutely mistaken, because mathematics do not fail. And as for the chemical elements, like lecithin and others, it is ostensible that they are all found in the blood, but the blood eliminated by menstruation only contains dead waste, or the chemical principles which are now useless for the organism. Is it true that the man is more intelligent than the woman? Many women surpass men in intelligence. Women exist who are geniuses. H.P. Blavatsky, Annie Besant, Mabel Collins, etc. were more intelligent than many men who are considered geniuses. You have spoken to us in your works of reproduction by spores in primitive times. You also affirm that these spores detached themselves from the calves of the legs. Do the legs have anything to do with sex? Reproduction by sprouting existed in the Hyperborean period. Spores detached themselves from the calves, but the hermaphrodite of flesh and bone, the Lemurian hermaphrodite which reproduced by gemation, this hermaphrodite menstruated internally, within the organism. That egg, after a certain time, as with the birds, opened to enable a new being to be born. This was fed by the father-mother. With the separation of human beings into opposite sexes, the menstruation continued in the feminine part, with the difference that the egg was now nourished by the organism which produced it. For the human race to continue, sexual cooperation was then necessary, the chemical copula. This separation into opposite sexes is symbolized in Genesis with that scene in which God takes a rib from Adam, the Eve of Hebrew mythology. What is the difference between the sexual impulse and the excessive erotic sensation, specifically in the woman? It is very natural that the woman feels a sexual impulse. Another thing is the excessive erotic sensation. This sign indicates unbridled animal passion, bestial degeneration. What message would you give to the single woman? The single woman must know how to wait. The great law and the Father who is in secret know best that which is best for us, and in the correct moment and hour give the single woman the husband she needs. Due to this, it has been said that marriage and shroud fall from the sky. Is the woman as much as the man able to advance equally on the path of self-realization? The woman is able to advance on the path the same as any man. She can achieve mastery in the fifth initiation of fire. Advances after this are only possible through tremendous intimate super efforts. When the woman is gestating a child in her womb, must she suspend the practice of sexual magic? The pregnant woman must wait for the birth of the child before recommencing her work of sexual transmutation. Master, some students are of the opinion that children are an obstacle for the intimate self-realization of the couple. They argue, for example, that in no part of the sacred history is there mention that Jesus, the Christ, for example, had children. To be a mother is not a sin. The woman is blessed because of the predestination of birth. Children are never an obstacle for the intimate self-realization of the being. No one knows the private life of the great Hierophant Jesus. It is unquestionable that he was a complete man in the complete sense of the word, and therefore it is ostensible that he knew fatherhood. No one knows the personal life of the great Kabir Jesus. The cosmic drama which he represented is not his personal human life, because this drama is of a universal order. Many masters also represented this drama in the past, and many will represent it in the future. As a concrete example of the little which is known about Jesus, we have that phrase which he pronounced in Calvary, Ele lama sabachthani. Many, hearing it, thought that he called Elias, but in truth no one understood it. It is evident that such a phrase was not Hebrew, but Maya. Any Mayan Indian of Guatemala or Yucatan knows very well that the significance of this phrase is the following: "Now I submerge myself in the pre-dawn of your presence." It is unquestionable that the ritual language of the great Kabir Jesus was Mayan. The great Hierophant learned Maya and Naga in ancient Tibet. In the monastery of Hemis, in Leh, Kashmir, adjacent with Tibet, there exists an ancient text which to the letter says, "When Jesus left home, in his country, first he went to Egypt, and there he studied the antique Osiriana Maya religion. From Egypt, he traveled to India, and in many cities, including Benares and Lahore, studying the teachings of Gautama Buddha. Thereafter he entered a Himalayan monastery, where he studied directly Mayan and its cosmic sciences. At the end of 12 years, he achieved mastery. In Palestine, Jesus, the great Kabir of Galilee, was an active member of the Essene sect, who had a Gnostic monastery on the banks of the Dead Sea. The great Kabir Jesus reached the grades of perfect master and great elect, working in the fiery forge of Vulcan. The self-realization is not possible without the practice of Sahaja Maituna, sexual yoga. Did the master Helena Petrona Blavatsky have children? Helena Petrona Blavatsky did not have children because she was married when she was very old to the elderly Colonel Olcott. The first marriage of HPB with Count Blavatsky does not count due to the fact that she did not lead with the sighted man a conjugal life. In your opinion, what is the value of the work titled Isis Unveiled, written by Master Helena Petrona Blavatsky? It is a good book. However, the hour has arrived to tear veils and to deliver Christic esotericism publicly. When the woman reaches menopause, how is she able to transmute? The sexual energy is not only in the ovules, but also in the whole of the female sexual system. What is a Suvani? A Suvani is a woman prepared for sexual yoga, the priestess wife. Inverential peace, Samael Aun Weor.